Ruth Johnson is here, the Secretary of State, State of Michigan. Great to see you again.
How are you?
I'm doing great. This is a fabulous day. Everybody gets to have their voice heard.
And it sounds like they're voting. You're closer to the electorate in many respects than Dave and I are. What are you hearing, and what does turnout look like?
Well, I can tell you turnout by Friday for the absentees was up 35% from the last presidential. We're getting anecdotal information saying that there's been a huge turnout, and we know that some communities even have had to have more ballots printed off so that they can accommodate every voter.
Which is a great thing.
Oh my goodness, it's fabulous.
Yeah, very interesting.
I got to tell you one thing that we've heard repeatedly today. This is a primary, and it's been a while since we've had a presidential primary in this state. And when you went to your polling place today, you had to, on the little sign-up sheet, you had to indicate if you wanted a Republican ballot or a Democratic ballot. And we've gotten quite a bit of feedback that many people didn't like that. Worried about privacy and things of that sort. Can you explain why that is? And I don't remember that being the case before. It's been so long since we've had a primary, but kind of explain that process.
Yes, there was a law that was passed and started in 2008. However, the law had a little flaw in it, so the whole thing was then considered null and void. It went back into place. So this is our third time. There are a lot of people that I'm hearing from the poll workers and clerks that don't like to mark what party in front of other people. We have what's called a semi-closed, such as Ohio. You have to actually tell what party you belong to even register. Mm-hmm. In Michigan, the law states that you have to declare which party you're going to vote for to get the proper ballot. One of the reasons why some of the states have done this, and even to the extent where you have to register, is because there's been organized efforts to try to get the worst person elected by the other party. And so that's why they've done this.
Do you think we'll see much crossover this time around? And historically, has that been an issue, especially if you have a heated campaign?
Yes, you can kind of divide up. About a third of the people consider themselves Republican, slightly more than a third Democrat, and then we have a large population that considers themselves independent and votes for the person. And I think we're seeing more and more of that every time we have an election, that people are voting more independently rather than by party.
And maybe with this particular group of candidates, it'll be interesting to see if we see more of that than usual.
Yes, I mean, by talking to people, and I don't have any special knowledge as Secretary of State, but I do hear people that are willing to cross over and are looking more and more at a personality that they might be more attracted to rather than what they have as far as the initial after their name.
Yeah. Right. How concerned are you as a member of the Republican Party, and I know you serve in a role in which you have to work for both parties and all the people, but how concerned are you with the divisiveness and the name calling that you've seen? Does that concern you as we sort of make our way to November?
Well, for me, I want to hear what somebody's going to do for America. I want to know about how we're going to be able to have jobs and people are going to be able to make a good living. I want to know how we're going to make sure every child gets a good education and a safe environment. I personally really don't like the rhetoric and the name calling. Personally, I think it detracts.
Well, we've got maybe 2 million people is the projection. We'll go to the polls today, and hey, we'd like everybody to go to the polls, but that seems like a good positive number for our state.
It is. Of course, I would like to see a lot more. Our last one was 16.7.
Okay.
We may hit close to a little under 25%, and I think that's great, but it's not enough. People need to take this opportunity to have their voice heard. They need to get out and vote. So many people have given up so much for this wonderful opportunity that we have in America. And we can go to vote and we don't have to worry about getting hurt or having something happen. We know that the ballot is going to be done in a way that there's integrity in it. And so people need to take the time, and I think what takes more time than voting, at least for me, is looking up every single person that's running, the candidates. I don't want the soundbite. I don't want the literature that might not be 100% accurate. I want to know what they've done. That's the best indicator of what they will do. And I also want to know their stances on subjects that are so important to our country, our state, our communities.
Do your homework is what you're saying.
Absolutely.
It's a lot of work, but it's well worth it.
Yeah.
All right. Want to make any quick predictions of what you think the turnout will be in November? Michigan?
I have no idea. I know that I will be encouraging everyone. The message from our office, as always, will be please get out and vote. And my extra message is please take time to do your due diligence to make sure who you're voting for isn't a soundbite.
That's so important.
It
that you
really
don't
is.
just go in there voting blindly, that you know where each candidate stands.
Yes, and that's not always easy.
Yeah.
It's a lot of hard work.
It is a lot of hard work. Yeah.
Ruth, thank you so much. Ruth Johnson, Secretary of State, for joining us on our election webcast tonight. We appreciate it. We're following the results this evening very, very closely and anticipating how Michigan voters have selected in terms of candidates, and we'll see what happens come November as well.
It's an exciting day, and we even have a bigger one coming up. And I would urge anyone that is going to be 18 by the election to make sure that they register to vote. Michigan was named the #1 state in getting people registered to vote, but we never stop encouraging people so that they can vote on the presidential election on March.
There'll be a deadline for that, right? That we've got to be registered by a certain date to be eligible for the
That's
general
right. It has
election?
to be 30 days before the election, and the election is November 8th.
Yes.
So make sure you get registered so you can vote. And as I said, very proud of our staff. We're #1 in the country, and we'll keep working at that very hard.
And just because someone may not have voted in the primary, they should know that that does not preclude them from voting in the general, that there's still time to get registered. You can still vote. Because some people may not have wanted to vote in the primary just because of what we talked about earlier, because they didn't want anybody to know if they were Democrat or Republican, or give that impression. But November, no one knows.
That's right. And another thing people need to know, it doesn't matter whether they voted Democrat or Republican today. That doesn't mean they have to vote that party in
That's
November.
right. Absolutely.
Pick the best candidate.
Please, and
Yeah.
get out and vote.
Yeah, I agree. Thank you
And
very
Thank you so much.
one more thing,
Sure.
michigan.gov/vote will have for your precinct. It will tell you where it's at. But most importantly, I think, is that we'll have the ballot. So you can look at everything that's on the ballot and do your due diligence, do your research. And you can mark that, take it with you, so when you vote, you have it. But michigan.gov/vote is our MVIC site. It has all the information on it you'll need to for your voting, for where you vote, whether you're registered, and your ballot. There's over 5,000 ballot styles in Michigan because we have local home rule. So just because you have one ballot doesn't mean I'm going to have the same one,
Same
even if we're
one.
neighbors.
Yeah, so
Right.
take a look ahead of time.
Yes,
Yeah.
that would be great.
Great, thanks.
Thank you so much for everything
Thank
you're
you so
doing
much
to
for
encourage
coming
people
in.
to vote today. I
great.
really appreciate it.
Thanks,
And,
Ruth.
we hope they turn out in record numbers.
I do.
Thank you.
Ruth Johnson, the Secretary of State in the state of Michigan, joining us for our election webcast here on WXYZ.com.